then, guys, welcome back again. Since I have taken a short break, since I have first read the first 4 chapters of Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, I have covered up the story of Bourgoin, a famous detective, Hercule Poirot, who made his journey on the train from Turkey to France. Therefore, Mr. Hercule Poirot has started his case on a mysterious murder on the sleeper train. So, shall we continue on the second part by starting on chapter 4, The Open Door? Then, okay, so, where was I? Ah, yes. Page 27, chapter 4, An Open Door. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we continue and read more about the Hercule Poirot murder on the Orient Express? Let's begin. Mrs. Hubbard left. Mr. Bouc said anxiously, "I hope this butter doesn't mean that Pierre Michael is a murderer." "That button is interesting," said Poirot. "But let us interview the Swedish lady before we discuss it." He looked through the pile of passports. Here we are. Greta Holson, age 49. M. Bouc asked the waiter to invite her in. The woman with a sheep-like face and fair hair entered. She looked quite calm. "You know what happened last night?" said Poirot. "Yes, it is terrible," she replied. You will understand, Mademoiselle, that I must ask everyone about their movements last night after dinner." "Of course. Well, I spent most of the evening in my compartment, but I did go to see an American lady, Mrs. Hubbard. She gave me some aspirin." "Did she ask if the door between her compartment and Mr. Rachet's was bolted?" "Yes, she did, and it was. And after that, I went back to my bed, took an aspirin, and fell asleep. Your compartment is this one." He pointed to the plan. "Yes, I think so. I am sharing with a young English lady, very nice. She has travelled for Baghdad." "Did she leave the compartment during the night?" "No, I am sure she did not." "Why are you sure if you were asleep?" "I woke very easily." "She was sleeping in the bed above mine." "I always noticed when she comes down. Did you leave the compartment?" "Not until this morning." "Do you have a red dressing gown?" "No, I did not. Mine is brown." "Have you ever been to America, mademoiselle?" "Sadly, no. I like the Americans. They gave a lot of money to schools, hospitals in Turkey." "Why do you ask?" Poirot explained about the Armstrong case. Greta Holson left the interview room, shaking her head and crying. How can there be such evil in the world? Poirot spent some time writing notes. The conductor said that Mrs. Hubbard bell rang sometime after 1 a.m. "Yes, it seems quite clear that the murder happened at 1:15, said M. Bouc. "That fits the evidence of a watch and the stories of the conductor and Mrs. Hubbard. And I think I can guess the murderer is. It is a big Italian. The Italians always kill with a knife. And this one has lived in America He and Wetcher probably worked in this kidnapping business together. Then Roquette cheated him. The Italian wanted revenge. He sent threatening letters, then he killed him. Very simple. Simple except for the man-servant with a trivake. Who says that an Italian never left the compartment? Said Poirot. Yes, that is a difficulty. But it will be explained, said Bouc confidently. The detective shook his head. No, it is not simple as that, I feel. But let us hear with Pierre what Pierre Michael can tell us about this button. The conductor was called and shown a button. It seems certain, said Bouc, that the murderer passed through Mrs. Hubbard's compartments and dropped that button. Michael was very upset. It is not mine, monsieur. Look, my uniform has lost no buttons. I am innocent of this crime. Where were you when Mrs. Hubbard's bell rang? In the next carriage, monsieur. I was talking to the colleague. The colleague was called. His story agreed with Michael's buttons of all the other conductors' uniforms were checked, and none were missing. Monsieur, do you see now? I am not guilty, cried Michael. Calm yourself, Michael, said Bouc. Think back to last night. When you went to answer Mrs. Bucket's bell, did you see anyone in the corridor? No, monsieur. That is no surprise, said Poirot. Mrs. Hubbard lay with her eyes closed for some time after she realised that there was someone in her compartment. The man probably went out then. If the murderer was one of the passengers, he had time to get back to his own compartment before Michael arrived. We still have 8 passengers to interview, said Bouc. Shall we see Italian next? You think only of your Italian, laughed Poirot. No, we will see the princess first, Michael. Could you ask her to come in? Princess Dragonoff looked even uglier than the day before, but intelligence and energy shone from her small dark eyes. As Bouc apologised for troubling her, she stopped him in her deep, clear voice. Murder is a serious matter, monsieur. I am happy to help you in any way if I can. Thank you, madame, said Poirot. You are Princess Natalia Dragonoff, travelling to your home in Paris? Yes. My maid is with me. Please could you tell us your movement last night after dinner? Brilliantly. I went to bed straight after the meal. I read until 11, then turned out the light. I was unable to sleep because of pains that I often have in my legs. At about 1:15, I ran for my maid. She read to me until I fell asleep. I am not sure exactly when she left me. After half an hour, perhaps. You have been a milker, I suppose, madame. The sudden change of subject surprised the old lady. Many times. Did you at any time meet a lady called Armstrong? Her voice shook as she said, If you mean Sonia and Robert Armstrong, then yes. Sonia was my goddaughter. Her mother, the actress Linda Erdon, was a close friend of mine. Linda Erdon is dead now. She's alive. but she sees no one. Her health is very poor. There was, I think, a second daughter. Yes, much younger than Mrs. Armstrong. Where is she now? The old lady looked at him in surprise. What connections do these questions have with a murder on this train? The murdered man was responsible for the kidnap and murder of Mrs. Armstrong's child. Ah, the Princess Dragonleworth sat straighter in her chair. Then, this murder is a very happy event. You will excuse my strong opinion on the subject. Of course, madame. Now, we must return to my earlier question. Where is the younger daughter of Linda Uden? Honestly, I cannot tell you, monsieur. I have lost contact with her. I believe she married an English man some years ago, but I'm afraid I cannot remember his name. She paused for a minute, and then, is there anything else, gentlemen? Just one thing, madame. The colour of your trimming gown. I suppose you have a good reason for asking this. It is blue. That is all. Thank you for your help. Count and Countess Andrew Ray were called next, but the Count entered the restaurant carriage alone. He was a fine-looking man, tall, well-built, with a long moustache and dressed in an expensive English suit. Well, gentlemen, he said, what can I do for you first? As you know, said Poirot, there was a murder here last night, and I must ask certain questions of a passenger. Of course, I'm afraid, though, that my wife and I were asleep and heard nothing at all. Do you know who was murdered, monsieur? The big American, I understand. Yes, his name was Cassidy. He was responsible for some terrible crimes in America. The Count showed no signs of emotion at this news. That explains his murder. I suppose, he said, you have been to America, perhaps, monsieur? I was in Washington for a year. Did you know the Armstrong family? Armstrong. It is difficult to remember. There were so many names. He smiled. But, returning to the murder, gentlemen, what more can I do to help you? When did you go to bed last night, monsieur? At about 11 o'clock. We both slept until morning and noticed nothing. I'm sorry, we cannot help you in any way. Thank you, monsieur. You won't need to speak to my wife. She can tell you nothing more than I have. Paul's expression changed slightly. I am sure that it's true, he said, but I must have a little talk with the Countess. It is quite unnecessarily, said the Count. I'm afraid it is necessarily. For my report, you understand, as you wish, he said, and went to tell her. Poirot looked at the Count's passport, travelling with wife. He read, name, Helena Maria Andre. Surname before marriage, Goldenberg, age 20. An ink spot had been dropped on the page by careless official. Countess Andrea entered the restaurant carriage. You wish to see me, gentlemen? She asked in perfect French. Thank you, Countess, said Poirot. I only need to talk to you if you saw or heard anything unusual last night. No, nothing. I had taken medicine to help me sleep. Did you go with your husband to America, madam? Why did you ask me that? No, monsieur. We were not married then. We have only Been married a year. She smiled shyly, with her big, dark eyes and bright red lips. She looked very forward and very beautiful. Why did you ask me that? Detectives have to ask a lot of strange questions. For example, what colour is your dressing gown? Is it cream colour? Is that important? Very important. How does your husband smoke a pipe? No, cigarettes, but not a pipe. Do you speak English? He asked in that language. I speak a little. Yes, her accent was very strong, but very attractive. And it is all, the detective said. You see, madam, it was not so terrible. She smiled and walked out of her carriage. That was not very useful, said Bouc. Shall we see the Italian now? Poirot did not reply for the moment. He was studying the ink spots on the Hungarian passport. Finally, he looked at Mr. Bouc. We will leave you your Italian for the moment, my friend, and interview a good-looking Englishman. Colonel Harbuthnot. When the colonel arrived, Poirot said, You are travelling from India to Britain, I think. Why are you not going by boat? I chose to take the overland route for reasons of my own, said Colonel unhelpfully. I say, you came straight through from India. I stopped for 3 days in Baghdad to visit an old friend. You met the young English lady there, perhaps? Miss Debenham? No, I did not. I first met Miss Debenham on a train. We think that M. Richard was murdered at 1:15 last night. What were you doing at that time? I was talking to a young American, the dead man's secretary. We were in his compartment. Did you know Emma Queen before his journey? No, we started talking yesterday and we enjoyed each other's company. I don't usually like Americans, but I like McQueen. We had a long discussion about India and America and the world in general. I was quite surprised when I looked at my watch and found out that it was 2:15. That is the time that you stopped this conversation. Yes. What did you do then? I walked back to my own compartment and went to bed. Now, Colonel, I want you to think back to your conversation with M. McQueen. You got out at Vankos in Coffee. Sigh. Yes, but only for about a minute. It was snowing very hard, so you came back in. You sat down again. You smoked. Perhaps a cigarette? Perhaps a pipe? Pause for the moment. A pipe for me. McQueen smoked cigarettes. The train started again. Did anyone pass the door after that? I don't remember anyone except the conductor. Wait a minute. There was a woman too. I think she was wearing something red. Thank you. Have you been in America, Colonel? Never. I have no interest in going there. Did you ever know Colonel Armstrong? Colonel Armstrong. I have known 2 or 3 Armstrongs. Do you mean Selby Armstrong or Tommy? I mean Colonel Robert Armstrong, who married an English, who married an American, and whose only child was kidnapped and killed. Ah, I remember reading about that, but I do not know him. A murdered man was responsible for that kidnap. Really? Then he deserved to die. Although it's a pity that it wasn't done legally. Through the courts, of course. You can't go around murdering people out of revenge. Like Corsicans? Poirot looked at the colonel thoughtfully. I have no more questions unless you noticed anything unusual last night. Harbuthnot thought for a moment. No, he said. Nothing unless he paused. Yes, said the detective. Well, it's nothing really, but when I got back to my compartment, I noticed the front door of the end compartment, number 16. Yes, the door to it was not quite closed. The man inside looked in a secretive way. Then, quite quickly, closed the door. It seemed a bit strange. Yes, said Poirot doubtfully. When the soldier had left the carriage, the Poirot stared into the space for some time. Then he said, Colonel Harbuthnot smokes a pipe. In Regic's compartment, I found a pipe cleaner. You think, began Mr. Bouc. He was also in the same army as Colonel Armstrong. He said that he did not know him. Perhaps that was a lie. So, it is possible that. Poirot shook his head angrily. No, it is impossible that this Englishman, who believes in law and order, could push a knife into the enemy's 12 times. The detective's thoughts turned to the next interview. The American in compartment 16, I think. The American soon came in wearing the brightly coloured suit and pink shirt. He had a right friendly face. Good morning, gentlemen, he said. What can I do for you? You have heard this murder, Mr. Hardman. Yes. We were interviewing all the passengers. You are Poirot. Looked quite quickly at a passport in front of him. 41 years of age. A salesman of office machines. Yes, that's me. You are travelling for business reasons. That's right. Can you tell us anything about events of last night? Nothing at all, sorry. Ah, that is a pity, perhaps, Mr. Hardman. You will tell us exactly what we did after dinner last night. Hardman paused, then said, Excuse me, but who are you exactly? I am Hercule Poirot. I have been hired by the Compagnie Internationale des Dragons to solve this crime. I've heard of you, said Mr. Hardman. He thought for a minute more. Then said, I suppose I should be honest. You should certainly tell us all that you know, said Poirot. The American now spoke in a different voice. In fact, seemed a completely different person. Well, as I said, I don't know anything, but I should know something. Please explain, Mr. Hardman. Some of the information in my passport is false. This is who I really am. He produced a card for his pocket. Mr. Cyrus B. Hardman, McNeil's private detective, New York. Poirot knew the name of the company. McNeil's had an excellent reputation. I had gone to Istanbul after a couple of criminals. No connections with his business. I was planning in my journey home to New York. When I got this, he pushed a, across the letter. Dear sir, I understand that you are a private detective. Please come to my rooms at 4 o'clock this afternoon. It was written on the night paper from the Catalan Hotel in Istanbul and was signed C.E. Ratchet. I went to see Ratchet and showed me some threatening letters that he had received. He hired me for the protection on his journey west. Well, my protection wasn't very good, wasn't it? How had you hoped to protect him? I had planned to travel in the next door compartment, but it was taken. Number 16 was in a good position, though no one could reach Miss Richard compartment without passing mine. You had no idea, I suppose, who a possible attacker was. Well, I know what he looked like. Mr. Ratchet described him to me. What? His three listeners are almost jumped out of their seats. Hardman continued, a small man, dark and with a high voice. Like a woman's. That's how Ratchet described him. Did you know that Ratchet was a Cassetti, the Armstrong's murderer? Mr. Hardman looked shocked. No, I didn't recognise him. I'd seen the photos of Constantine in the papers, I suppose, but I wouldn't recognise my own mother in one of those photos. Please, M. Hardman, continue your story. There's not much to tell. I slept in the day and stayed awake, watching the corridor at night. Nothing happened the first night, and I thought the same was true last night. No stranger passed. You are sure of that, M.L. Hardman? Yes, I am. I'm certain. Then I think we've finished. Thank you. Poirot offered the American a cigarette. But perhaps you prefer the pipe. Not me. It was nice to meet you, Mr. Poirot. He took the cigarette and walked away. The three men looked at each other. A small man, dark, with a high voice like the woman's, said, Bouc, thoughtfully, a description which fits no one on the train, said the Poirot. He paused, then said with a smile, and now we will make Bouc happy. We will see with the Italian, the man with the dark skin and a pleasant, cheerful face was soon walking across the restaurant carriage towards them. Your name is Antonio Foscarelli from Italy. Yes, monsieur, but I have become an American citizen. It is better for my business. He smiled. You sell Ford motor cars? Yes, you see. A long explanation of Foscarelli's business vessel followed. Before Poirot could continue his questions. So, have you lived in the United States for the last 10 years? Yes, monsieur. I remember the day that I left my mother. Poirot interrupted him. Did you ever met Mr. Ratchet in America? No, but I met many people like him. On the outside, they're very polite, very well dressed, but underneath, evil in my opinion. Ratchet was a criminal. Your opinion is correct, said Poirot. Ratchet was a Cassidy, the kidnapper. What did I tell you? I am good at reading people's faces. It is important in my work. You remember the Armstrong case? Not very well. It was a little girl, wasn't it? A terrible crime. But these things happen, even in a great country like America. Did you ever meet any members of the Armstrong family? I don't think so, but it is difficult to say. Last year alone I sold cars too. Poirot interrupted him again. Monsieur, please tell me what you did last night after dinner. With pleasure, I went back to my compartment. An English servant shares the compartment with me, but he was out. Then he came back. But he wasn't interested in talking. Yes, and yes, no, nothing else. He was very unfriendly. He read his book and read mine. I smoked a pipe or two, cigarette or two. He had a toothache, and he was making a lot of noise about it. I went to sleep, but I woke up a few times to the sound of his complaining. Did he leave the compartment at all during the night? I don't think so. When the door opens, the light from the corridor comes in very brightly and wakes you up. With words of thanks, Poirot brought an interview to an end. Well, he has been in America for a long time, said Bouc. When Foscari had left the carriage, his Italians are good at lying and love using knives. I don't like Italians. That is very clever, smiled Poirot, but there is no evidence against this man. Italians use knives. Yes, but in a fight. When they are angry, this murder was a very carefully planned. He picks up the last two passports. Let's see, Miss Mary Debenham next. Miss Debenham entered the restaurant carriage calmly, dressed in a little black suit. She sat down opposite Poirot. Your name is Mary Hermione Debenham. You are English, and you are 26 years old, began Poirot. Yes. Now, Mrs. Debenham, what can you tell us about last night's events? Nothing. I'm afraid I went to bed and slept. Poirot looked at her thoughtfully. You are travelling from Baghdad to London, I believe. Yes. What have you been doing in Baghdad? I have been working as a governess to children. Have you ever been to America? America? No, never. What is your opinion of a lady who shares your compartment, Miss Holston? She seems a pleasant, simple person. What colour is her dressing gown? Mary Debenham looked surprised. A brown colour. And I noticed your dressing gown on the train to Amsterdam. It is Pellsborough, I believe. Yes, that is right. Have you got any other dressing gown, Miss Debenham? A red one, for example. No, that is not mine. The detective moved forward quickly, like the cat jumping on a mouse. Not yours. So you know that the red dressing gown belongs to someone else. Whose is it? The girl moved back, a little shocked. I don't know, she replied. I saw someone wearing it last night in the corridor, but I didn't see her face. Was she tall or short? Fair or dark? She had a hat on, so I couldn't see her hair, but she was tall and thin. It was a Chinese-style dressing gown. Yes, that's right, Chinese. The detective was silent for a minute. Then she said to himself, I cannot understand. None of this makes sense. Look it up, he said to Miss Debenham. We do not need you anymore. You can go. When she had left, Bouc stared at his friend with a confused look on his face. You think she is guilty, don't you? He said slowly. But why? She seems a very pleasant young lady. The last person in the world to be a murderer. I agree, said Constantine. She is a very calm person. She would not murder her enemy. She would take him to court. There is an emotional, intelligent brain behind this crime. Miss Debenham fits the description of a murderer exactly. Bouc shook his head. You are wrong, my friend. That young woman is not a criminal. I have another reason to think carefully about her. I have not yet told you what I heard during my journeys to Constantine. He told the two men about Miss Debenham's words to Colonel Arbuthnot on a platform at Conyers. Bouc repeated the words thoughtfully. Not now. When it's all over, when it's behind us, that is certainly strange. It suggests that she and the Colonel are both responsible. Yes, but there are other people who tell us that who could not be the murderers. The stories of the Swedish woman and Mr. McQueen seem to prove that they are both innocent. No, that solution does not work. Well, continued the detective, picking up the lost passport. Let us see your lost passenger, Princess Dragonworth, German maid. Height grade, Smith. When the maid entered, Poirot asked her gently in German about her movement the night before. I do not know anything, monsieur, she said. Your employer sent for you last night, I believe. Do you remember the time? No, monsieur. I was asleep when the conductor called me. Do you often go to your employer's room at night? It is not unusual, monsieur. She did not sleep well. And did you put on your dressing gown to go to her compartment? That would not be right, monsieur. I put on my day clothes, although it is a very nice dressing gown, red, I think. She stared at him. It is dark blue, monsieur. Ah, my mistake. So, you went to the princess' compartment. What do you do there? I read to her, then I returned to my own compartment to get her an extra blanket, and finally went back to bed. Do you know what time that was? No, monsieur. And you met no one in the corridor? No, monsieur. There was nobody there except the conductor. Everyone was asleep. But did you see the conductor? What was he doing? He came out of one of the compartments, monsieur. And Bouc moved forward. Which one? He asked urgently. The maid looked frightened. One of the middle ones, monsieur. To all three doors from the princess's. Please tell us exactly what happened. He almost ran into me as I was taking a blanket to the princess. Then he apologized and continued down the corridor. The bell began ringing, but I do not think he answered it. This poor conductor, said Poirot. He had a busy night. First, he had to wake you up. Then, there was that bell. He was not the conductor who woke me up, monsieur. He was another one. Another one? Would you recognize him if you saw him again? I think so, monsieur. Poirot whispered something on Bouc's ear, and Bouc went to the door to give an order. Have you ever been to America? The detective continued. Never, monsieur. It must be a fine country. He took a handkerchief from his pocket. Is this yours? There was a moment's silence. The woman examined it. Her face went a little red. No, it is not mine, she replied. It has a little H, you see, for Hildegard. Really, it is not mine. This is an expensive handkerchief, monsieur, the handkerchief of a fine lady. You don't know which fine lady? Poirot noticed that there was a slight pause before she answered. Oh no, monsieur. And Bouc now whispered in Poirot's ear. The detective said, there are 3 conductors are coming in. Mademoiselle, please, could you tell me which one almost ran into you last night? The 3 men entered. Hildegard Smith looked at them and immediately shook her head. No, monsieur, none of these is a man that I saw last night. These are all tall, big men. I was small, dark man with a little moustache. When he said, excuse me, his voice was weak, like a woman's. I remember him very well, monsieur. Okay, so let's stop there on chapter 6, the sponge bag. So, I think it seems very intrigued about when Detective Hercule Poirot has interviewed the witnesses and who has witnessed a murderer who was in the sleeper carriage train. It reminds me of the first 4 chapters when Hercule Poirot began his train journey to France. Unfortunately, he's been stranded in the thick snow. He's stuck in the carriage, but therefore, he's began his investigation behind the murders in the Orient Express. Okay, guys, so I just stop there for a moment on page 45, and then we will continue on chapter 6. Okay, guys, so I hope you see you soon. I'll see you in a short while.